Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today is August 31st, 2021, and today's guest is the UP Bowhunter, Todd Freeman. All right. Welcome to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blicey, and today's episode is 176. And today's episode is about hunting the UP of Michigan. Now, this is selfishly something that I wanted to know about because there's a lot of history with the UP and bow hunting up there. So it's something I've never done. And it's something I wanted to learn more about. So I've got one of the experts on it that I would like to say because he grew up in the UP, bow hunted in the UP. Now he's since relocated to New Jersey, but he is one of the OGs. He was in there in the 80s and the 90s, and he bow hunted and hunted with a gun and everything. And we get into talking about UP hunting, and it's really cool because there's a lot of history up there. So in short, that's what today's podcast is about. You know, I want to quickly kind of hit on what has been going on this last weekend. Just got back last night. Spent 3 days in Illinois putting food plots in, daylight to dark, and 100-degree heat. It was awesome. It was good to get out and do some work. But we got Illinois dialed in now. Can't wait to get down there this fall and hopefully fill a tag. So I'm pretty excited about that. Before we do get into this, though, I do want to talk a little bit about Exodus trail cams. If you guys are looking for a new trail cam this year, go to ExodusOutdoorGear.com. Check out their cameras. Like I said, my favorite camera is their Render. It's the cell cam. I'm really big on the cell cams right now because the way I hunt and the little woodlots that I do hunt in, it gets me my fix to my phone every day, and it doesn't make me have to go in there and want to check them all the time. So ExodusOutdoorGear.com, go check them out. Everything you want, they have. They have, other cameras as well. They have normal trail cams, not just cell cams, but they are backed by a 5-year warranty, which is crazy. Not a lot of trail cam companies out there do offer that, so you do get a 5-year warranty, and they're great dudes. Great bunch of guys. Go check out all their content as well on YouTube. They do the whitetail cribs. They do the big buck stories. Like they just came out with one about the hole in the horn buck, the number 2 non-typical world record buck. It was pretty cool. So go check out all the stuff that they're doing. And also, I do want to drop a line. If you guys are looking for some more content, go check out Working Class Bowhunter. Those guys over there are doing an awesome job. Love those guys. Become pretty good friends with them. Go check them out. They come out with a lot of good episodes every week. And I believe actually right now they're heading on a mule deer hunt, I believe. So can't wait to get those guys back and hear about what they got going on and what happened on the mule deer hunt. So with that being said, I'm going to get over to this interview with Todd, and we're going to have a good time. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. Thank you for all the support and all the downloads, and we're going to get over this interview with Todd. All right, welcome back to the Fall Podcast, and this week's guest is something I've been really excited about because selfishly, it's about the UP, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So everybody that's not from Michigan is probably turning the dial off now. But this is something that's going to be really cool just because of the history that Michigan deer hunting in the UP brings to what we do every year. So on the other line with me is the UP Bowhunter, Todd Freeman. Todd, thank you for coming on, man, and discussing some of this stuff.
Hey, no problem, Aaron. Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, definitely. So I like to start these off with, a lot of people listening to this might not know who you are. So kind of give the brief, like who you are. You're a Youper. I'm a troll. A lot of people probably don't understand what that is, but I live below the bridge and you lived above the bridge. So that's how you differentiate us. So kind of give everybody the 411 of who you are.
All right, so my real name is Todd Freeman. The UP Bowhunter is just something that came along, over the years with different, forums and hunting forums and stuff like that. That it's just a handle I always grabbed. Always proud. Most people are pretty proud of where they came from and, their upbringing and whatnot. And so the UP Bowhunters is something that I grabbed whenever it was available on different forums and stuff like that. And just something I kind of ran with when I used to film hunts and stuff like that 10 years ago or whatever. My YouTube page is called UP Bowhunter and that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So, Todd Freeman. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. When I was 18 years old, I went in the Navy and came out east. A couple of years after I got stationed in the Philadelphia area, spent a little time in the South Jersey area and met a girl over here, my wife Marcy, and we've been married 30 years now. And I've been living here in and out, because I was still in the Navy for a few years after that, and in and out of here and up and down the East Coast, and actually out in California, Southern California for a little while, but just in and out, and found a place here in South Jersey. But my first love of everything has always been the Upper Peninsula. If you take an hour of your day and probably about 10 minutes of every hour of every day, I think about the Upper Peninsula.
Really?
I wish I could live there, but my wife is a South Jersey girl. And she's not about to leave here. So
yeah. Well, and the UP is, if for people that haven't been up there, haven't seen it, it's a different beast. It is, like, honestly, I feel like it could be its own state. You know what I mean? Like, it's totally different than the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. I mean, once you start getting up to like northern Michigan, northern Lower Peninsula, it starts feeling like what I would call like Alaska, Canada, Canada more or less. But then when you get up to the UP, it's vastly different. I mean, it is so dense, the forest, and it's just not a lot of people, in my opinion, up there. I don't even know what the population is up there, honestly, but it's just a different vibe when I go across the bridge, and it's like, you just feel different. Did you ever get that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, it's where I'm from. So as soon as I started getting above Grayling and stuff like that, we have a lot of friends in the Grayling and the Traverse City and family in the Traverse City area. Once I get above there, it's a lot like the Upper Peninsula. But once I hit that Mackinac Bridge, it's like it's like that's the gateway to heaven to me. For the couple of times I get to get up there every year. But I'd like to give some people some geology of the UP, if you don't mind, Aaron.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Cool. All right, so the Upper Peninsula we're actually connected to Wisconsin, and growing up, I'm a Lions fan because my dad's family came from the Lower Peninsula. So I mean, we're all Michigan, everything, all
Good.
Detroit, everything. Good. As far as sports. You know what I mean? But up here, and I can kind of see it. I hate them. But most of the people up here are Packers fans because, I mean, let's face it. First of all, they've been a good team over the years, and people from up here actually are only 3.5, 4 hours away from Green Bay. So back in the day when you used to have to go shopping, not doing everything online, people from the Upper Peninsula generally would go down to Green Bay or Milwaukee to Christmas shop and everything else. They wouldn't go all the way down to Detroit, like 8 hours away, 9 hours away to Detroit. They would go over to Wisconsin. So you can kind of see how, being connected to Wisconsin and being much closer to the first big city or big town. I think Green Bay is like 800,000. Yeah. It's not really, really big, but it's a football town and stuff. I can understand it. And I got family members that are Green Bay, Packer backers, and I hate them, but whatever. But so some of the geology of the UP, obviously we're like I said, we're connected to Wisconsin. It's 320 miles long by 125 miles north to south. We touch 3 lakes. The Upper Peninsula touches 3 lakes. Lake Superior, the most beautiful lake in the world, is to our north, and that's our biggest shoreline up there. You got Lake Michigan to the south on the west side, and Lake Huron to the south on our east side. Mm-hmm. There's over 16,000 square miles of surface area of the Upper Peninsula. and about 80% of that is public land. So
Wow.
you think about that, you know what I mean? The Upper Peninsula is 1/3 the landmass of Michigan, but it's only 0.3 or 0.3% of the population. So if you think about that as well, you know what I mean? I think one of the reasons why the Upper Peninsula is never really been like conquered, or however you want to say it, is because of the way it lays out. So if you're in Michigan and you want to go to Wisconsin, if you're like in Lansing or north, you may go through the Upper Peninsula to go all the way around. If you want to go over to Wisconsin or Milwaukee or Minnesota, you may go north and go across the bridge and cut over, you know what I mean? But for the most part, most people are going to go Indiana and go around Chicago and go that way.
Yep.
So if we think about the way when we were when this country was headed west, it was just a place probably that was just overlooked. It's hard to get to. Until the 50s or early 60s, there wasn't even a bridge. You had to wait on a ferry to get across from the Lower Peninsula to the Upper Peninsula, and it was hard travel. You'd had to do days of travel to get to the Upper Peninsula, or if you were going to use the Upper Peninsula to get west. Does that make sense, Aaron?
Yeah, definitely it does. And that's
Yeah.
because even, I'm an hour north of Lansing where I grew up and where I'm at. So like even when if we go to Wisconsin, I've got relatives in Wisconsin, we're trying to take either the ferry over straight west out of Ludington, or we're going down and around. You know what I mean? And a lot of what that reason was too is because once you get up to US 2, for the longest time, it was only 55 mile an hour. So
absolutely.
you couldn't get up in US 2 and just put the hammer down and go straight across, because it was just like slow going. So you would make more ground going down and around than up and down, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's one of the reasons why the Upper Peninsula has just always been overlooked by everything, progression of all sorts. You know what I mean? And in all actuality, if you really think about it, you're a little bit younger guy, Aaron, but if you think about the last 10 or 15 years, people are starting to talk about the UP a little bit here and there. But if you go back 20 years, nobody even knew what the UP was. Like, a lot of people still don't. If you tell them, hey, I'm from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, they have no idea what the UP is. You have to explain that to them and everything else. And, you have to explain the whole thing I'm explaining to you right now, Yep. But if we look at, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm glad I have ties to the UP in a sense, because, I was telling you a little bit before the pre-call, that my dad and my uncles and some of their buddies, they started a deer camp up in Rapid River. And, that's about 4.5 hours from me, 4 hours and 45 minutes usually we can get there. And they got that. I know I'm off, but I'm just going to say like 1990, 91. That's when they got that. Well, they would always take trips up there to bow hunt or to bear hunt. And, that was part of my childhood. If we were going on vacation somewhere, we were going north. 4.5, 5 hours was a vacation, and that's where we would go up there. And it's, our camp's called Camp Motel 6 because there was 6 guys involved with it. And, no running water. So we had to go to the, oh man, now I'm drawing a blank, to get water. And then, there's a store just down the road that had showers, and we take showers there and everything. So that was my vacation. But I've yet to hunt in the UP, and I've yet to do any public land hunting. And like you said, roughly 80% of the UP is made up of public land, state ground. So it's like, I want to eventually start doing those trips with buddies and getting into it. And that's when you came into my head. I'm like, I need to pick your brain, and I want to, get into what is the ins and outs of it up there, basically.
Yeah. Well, hey, like I said, Michigan they call it a mitten state, and a lot of people just think, especially people from downstate, you troll guys, you think that it's only just because the downstate looks like a mitten, right?
Yep.
Well, a lot of times Upers will do the same thing, and if we were talking about we're going to Detroit, we'll put both hands up. So, but your left hand, if you think about it, the Upper Peninsula is kind of shaped like your left hand, but it's held horizontal.
Yep.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah.
And then your right hand is held for the Lower Peninsula. Your right hand is held upright or vertical, and you explain where you're from on the state, from blah blah blah. Well, the UP is exactly shaped like a glove as well, with the Keweenaw Peninsula being your thumb.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you could explain where you're going from here to here the same exact way as you guys from downstate. A lot of you guys downstate don't understand that, but we do that as well up in the UP. We just use it in a little different thing. But so the people that live up in the UP, when I was growing up, there really wasn't a term that we used a lot, but we just called ourselves people from the UP or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And we didn't really think about, we had to say anything, but probably around the late 80s, early 90s, there was the being from the Upper Peninsula, or, the people from the UP, UPers, it turned into Upers.
Yep.
And so that term over the years is really, first of all, I love being called a Uper. I love telling people I'm a Uper. It makes people ask you, well, what the hell's that? And you can explain to them, and a person that lives in the Upper Peninsula is obviously, the term is Uper, but generally, people from the UP were a completely different breed of people from other places. I mean, you might find some people from northern Wisconsin that probably have a little bit of Uper in them, or they have genealogy that moved over there or whatever. But Upers are a different type of people. And there's generally about 370 something inches of snow that falls a year up there. So
yes,
people,
that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of snow. That's 27, 28 feet of snow that fall a year. So every time you leave your house, if you're from the UP, every time you leave your house, it's from late September to, April, even into May, 6 inches of snow could fall while you're away from your house. So the people up there have a totally different mindset of resourcefulness compared to other people. Like, maybe nowadays a little bit you'd call AAA and that kind of stuff, but when I was growing up, there was no such thing as AAA and calling wreckers and all that kind of stuff. You had to be resourceful. Like, you go into work, if you had to commute 30 miles to work, that 30 miles into work, if 6 inches of snow fell, it might be a little bit slippery getting in, but if another 8 or 9 or 10 inches of snow fall on the way home and the trucks haven't been out there yet, you got to think about, like, what I got to do to survive if I put her into the toolies, you know what I mean? Like, put her off into the ditch. So people from the UP, I mean, and the farther you get away from the cities, like the Marquette, and, I grew up close to Marquette, but, you get away from the cities a little bit, and the people that live out in, out of the metropolitans of the UP, if you want to call them that, they are some of the most resourceful, most common sense laden people that you're ever going to meet, Aaron. I mean, these people, I remember, when I was a kid and you'd go out and hang out in a place that was, 30, 40 miles out of town, a girl from Scandia or a girl from, Eben or something like that. And these girls are like 12 or 13 years old and they know how to change a tire. You know what I mean? On a car. Yep. You know what I mean? Think about that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no girls or even guys these days, you know what I mean, that know how to change a tire. You know what I mean? Like, but these were farm girls and girls that, they're resourceful people. I mean, they understand, like, hey, we put this, you drive us off into the toolies here and we're stuck. We got to be able to survive. You got
to learn how to fend for yourself.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's a different, completely different mindset. I mean, cell phones are different now a little bit, but still, Upers are resourceful people. They're fun-loving people. They're social people. They love to have, they're not social in the aspect that they love to have a lot of people from outside of the UP coming in and getting into their space or whatever. But if they understand you and they've been introduced to you, they love you. Mm-hmm. And they're fun loving, and they're people that want to just sit around a campfire, have fun, tell stories. And, storytelling is a major part of the Upper culture, the UP culture. I mean, we love telling our stories, and there's only so many people that can tell stories. That's just a gift that you're either given or you're not given. But there's always one good storyteller in a group. And if you've ever been up there and you spent some time up there, like you said, with your uncle's camp, if you spend any time with the locals, you understand the storytelling is very, very important to the culture.
Yep, definitely. And I see that kind of bleed down here a little bit as well. I mean, I'm very, very talkative. My dad's very talkative. I think I probably get it from him. My uncles are the same way, but we have a deer camp down here as well, down in central Michigan, and it's the same culture to an extent. You know, it's not so much of like, you know, there's little towns in the UP that when November 13, 14, 15, 16 come around, that could be the mom and pop diner. That could be, you know, a huge part of their income for that year. You know, that's just
Absolutely.
the way it is. In towns, there's a lot of businesses and towns and schools that basically shut down because of opening day. It is the richest heritage that I've, you know, done any research on. And I'm not just saying that because I'm from Michigan, but, you know, I know PA's got a rich tradition. I know Wisconsin does as well, but I feel like it stemmed from the UP. Like it stemmed from there and kind of like, you know, spidered its way out, if you will. But like it is so rich in tradition up there that like it's, I don't know, it's in the UP, the Upers, like you say, they're passionate about that. They love that. And not a lot of people you go and come around up there are not hunters or not outdoorsmen. You know, a majority of them I feel like they live that lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, if you take a look at the culture, I mean, the culture is made up of, I mean, I would probably, I'm guessing these are Uper stats here right now, but I would say that the UP is probably 60% or traditionally has been 60% Finnish.
Yep.
People of Finnish descent. And, I mean, their people, they came over from Finland to come to a place that is exactly like Finland. You know what I mean? They're miners.
Yep.
They came over here to do the, and you know, people came before them and they say, oh man, there's a lot of Finns over there. And my grandfather went there, or my uncle or whatever. And that's how you fill in the culture of the UP. And,
right.
And they have so many different things that they've made the UP like a small Finland. You know what I mean, in that aspect. But there's so many other cultures up there as well. But, but you have to understand that the Finnish genealogy is very, very strong up there. But if you take a look at like the Upper Peninsula and the what it's done for the hunting culture, I mean, yeah. There's other places, you know, you got your Iowas that are beautiful places. There's mega giants down there. You got your Illinois, you got Kentucky and Ohio, and you got all these other places that are very, very beautiful, and they are. And you know, they all have their reasons why there's big bucks in their culture is grown over the last 30 years or whatever. But when you look at Michigan and the Upper Peninsula and what it's done for the deer culture, the culture that we all are fortunately able to, you know, be part of now, Michigan and the Upper Peninsula have been in the forefront, history-wise, even cultural, U.S. cultural-wise. If you look at things, the Upper Peninsula was a place that was a big woods, big camp, small camp environment big woods environment that people wanted to take if they had a week or they had 2 weeks in deer season. In our, I don't know how far it goes back, but November 15th through the 31st of November is our deer season.
Right.
That's never going to probably change, Aaron. You know that as well as I do.
It will never change.
No, we could try to change culture for antler restrictions and all this other stuff, but we are never going to take the rifles out of those 2 weeks.
Well, and that kind of goes to the aspect of like going back to those little towns that rely on that income and everything. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like you can't change it for that as well. You know what I mean? There's a lot of history up there and a lot of generations that have those types of places that rely on that. Me personally, being selfish, I want opening day to be around Thanksgiving. I think it makes more sense. For one, is usually people have a lot more time off from work, and, you know, families get together and there's your tradition. You know, you're trying to get together with everybody, hunt for a long weekend or whatever it is, but you move it back. I mean, there goes a lot of income that could, you know, and I don't know. I just, me selfishly, I want it to be pushed back to Thanksgiving because once November 15th hits, bow season's done for, and you know, and it's basically a crapshoot. So that's my 2 cents.
I completely understand that, and I think if you look at the two different cultures, like when you look at like down where you're at, Aaron, and you look at farming communities and the way people hunt down there, it's a totally different culture than the Upper Peninsula. Our deer in the Upper Peninsula can actually be migrating. They could be done rutting or rutting on the migration trails by the time Thanksgiving come around.
Yep.
It all depends on snowfalls and temperatures and things like that. Mostly snowfall.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
You know, you could have all the guys that I don't necessarily hunt, I don't hunt like this, but you could have the guys that have all their bait piles out, all their box blinds built and all that kind of stuff. If you moved it back another week, those guys could have been working their butts off for a month and they don't even have a chance because the deer are already migrating.
Right.
Depending on the weather for that season, if that makes sense.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Totally different world, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yep. So to be able to just overall take the whole state and say, oh no, let's move it back. I would much rather have a bow season all the way to November to Thanksgiving as well.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like get that extra week of bow hunting would give deer much more age. You know what I mean? You'd save some of the deer, more would live, but that's just the UP is a different animal when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So,
and I think that may be a good time to transition too. I want to get into like hunting the UP and how you were brought up hunting the UP and what it is now, because like I said, I eventually want to do these trips up to the UP. I've never hunted public land. That's all that really is up there. I don't own land. Like I said, we just have a deer camp and we can hunt all this public land. So like, I guess, you know, how was it hunting in the UP, like bow hunting, October, November, before gun season, you know, when you were growing up, how was the deer hunting as far as bow hunting goes? Like big woods, you know, was it really tricky? Did you see a lot of deer or, you know, how did that kind of shake out?
Well, so to be completely honest with you, when I was growing up in the UP, before I went to the service when I was 18, what we would generally do is we'd go put a pile of apples out.
Yep.
We would sit on apples. We'd probably build a wooden stand and sit on those apples, and we would kill does and we'd kill spikes and forks and all that kind of stuff if they were legal. Things changed when I went in the service. I came down to South Jersey and there was no baiting at that time, and I had to go, you know, hit public land down here and I had to learn how to hunt. So it was a different thing. But if we go to the UP and if you were to take baiting out, it would change a lot of people's aspects on how to hunt the UP. So baiting is a good thing. It's a bad thing. I think if all you do is rely on baiting, you're weakening yourself as a deer hunter. You're putting yourself into a small window. You're sitting in the same place. You're not enjoying your hunt because you're sitting in the same tree stand all the time. Does that make sense?
Yep. Agreed. I totally know what you mean. Yep.
Yep. When you start to learn and try to grow as a deer hunter, you want to do things and you want to see deer do things that are a little more natural than coming into a bait pile and being just on point when they come in. And so I learned those things, but I learned those things outside of the Upper Peninsula. When I would go home, my brother would have a bait pile out for me in my early 20s. He'd have a bait pile out for me, and we would go up there and we kill big does, we kill small bucks. You know what I mean?
Yep.
We would do those things when we were learning. We were learning about deer hunting. It was the easy way. I'm not necessarily taking that away from other hunters because I know a lot of big guys from the Upper Peninsula that have killed some really, really big bucks on bait piles. It happens. It happens during rifle season. It happens during bow season. But I think if those guys want to grow, they got to get away from the bait piles a little bit.
Yep.
The bait piles, though, they do a couple of different things for other hunters like myself, and probably yourself as well, Aaron, that gets away from the bait piles a little bit. You understand where the people are when people are baiting.
Yep.
Right? It's very clear on where they're parking, where their trails are going up and in and out of there. They probably got trailer cameras on them and those things. The deer population, the guys that are hunting different classes of deer, we need that as well. That's as important as it is for those people that do hunt over bait and do hunt that way in the Upper Peninsula. You know what I mean? Like, they're okay with shooting a fork. They're okay with shooting a spike. And that's cool too. You know what I mean? They're putting their meat in the freezer and everything else. We know the guys that are hunting sign and going in and, being a little more mobile and stuff like that. We understand that as well. So we can kind of utilize where we know those guys are at and where the pressure is going to be to our advantage as well.
For sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely it does. So like when that transition happened for you, when you were coming back in the 20s, or in your 20s, sorry, not in the 20s, in your 20s, and you're still hunting over bait, like when did that transition happen to you where you were like, man, this isn't cutting it for me? Like, I got to figure something out here, because you're probably not killing the caliber of deer you want or seeing the deer you want. So like, when did that transition happen?
Yeah, probably around 22, 23. I had probably been hunting for 10 years or whatever and shooting deer over bait. And then, down here in South Jersey, hunting deer over sign and stuff like that. And I was started to realize down here, like, these deer are no different than the Upper Peninsula deer. They got different kind of pressure. They have different kind of, structure down here as far as, the way the land is laid out and stuff like that. But they're doing all the same things.
Right.
Yeah, but I started to learn how to be able to kill, those 2.5-year-old bucks and stuff like that without bait. And on my bait piles in the UP, I'm only killing 1.5-year-olds, and I'm killing 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds down here. And it just, got a little bit, you started to realize, like, yeah, we don't need bait piles in the UP either. You know what I mean? Like, let's try not doing that.
Right.
When I get up there, my brother Jesse, like, Jess, you don't have to run me a bait pile. Like when I get there, we're gonna read some sign and we're gonna go in there and I want to find some deer. I'll put up a tree stand and we're gonna find some deer. That's where it started happening for me. And then I moved stations. I moved up to Maine. So when I was in the Navy, I moved up to Maine, and when I got up there, it was bow season. They had a pretty early season, and then a long rifle season there. And the first year I was there, I really, really did a lot of scouting. We got there in February, I think it was. So I was able to do some spring scouting and everything up there, and found some swamps and, some coastal swamps that were great. Found a lot of sign, stuff that I had been seeing in the UP and in Jersey. And I was able to put my sights on a really nice buck, if we look at the sign that he was laying down that spring. And then when bow season came in, it was the early season. I think it was like September 10th. The bow season came in for some of the coastal areas. And I was on a buck that was, to me, was a really, really big buck. I put a lot of the sign that I had seen in, and I had seen him 4 different times in, I think I was 24 at the time. I seen him 4 different times during the bow season. And the closest I was ever to him was about 75 yards.
Okay.
I was a young bow hunter. I was learning, and I was in a spruce swamp type coastal environment. So a little bit different than I'm used to. The spruce part, not so much, but the coastal Maine environment. On the 5th encounter, it was the second day of the season. I was able to put a bullet in him. It was the second day of the rifle season, and I was able to put a bullet in him and it killed him. He was a 159-inch, 160-inch, 16-point buck. He weighed 217 pounds, and that's really when it really all changed for me.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was what changed for me, and I didn't want to go back to any baiting, anything. I knew if I was given another couple of weeks and I didn't have the luxury of having a gun in my hand, I think I might have been able to get on that guy with a bow. You know, I was really, really close, and different compared to today and what we're doing as far as mobile. I wasn't nowhere near as mobile. I was doing hang-on stands with screw and spikes. You know what I mean? Completely different than what I'm doing now with a saddle and sticks and, you know, and stuff like that. But being able to go out there at that age and learn what that buck was doing, where he was bedding, and being so damn close to him, but not being able to kill him. Yeah, it was good. He would have probably been in the top 5 in the state at the time with a bow if I would have been able to kill him with a bow. So it would have been great.
Yeah,
but
that's pretty cool.
That's where everything changed for me. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. So when you went back to Michigan and hunted in Michigan, did you obviously probably implemented those, you know, those practices? Did you start seeing a change there as well? Like, did you get on some better deer, kill some better deer maybe with your bow or even with a gun?
So there was many years in my 30 years of marriage to my wife where financially and, you know, like maybe in a new position or whatever, I didn't have the vacation time to get to the UP every year. As much as I wanted to, there was a lot of years, there's a lot of big gaps where I wasn't able to get to the UP. So there was a lot of times when I did get up there, if a big doe came by, I would shoot a doe. Use my tag on her. You know what I mean? And it's some small bucks, but I've to be honest with you, Aaron, I've never killed a monster with my bow up there at this point. You know what I mean? And in the last couple of years, my brother and I, well, in the last year actually, I've made a commitment in the last couple of years to get up there as much as I possibly can. I've been going up there, you know, 2 times a year at least. One in the summer for trout fishing, and once in the fall for bow hunting. Yep. And I use the summer one for some scouting as well. The one thing that I have never done up there, even though we got a deer camp up there, we never really hunted around the camp a whole lot. Okay. We would always bounce around here, bounce around there. I never, ever was able to put like consecutive years in an area. Last year was the first year that my brother and I found an area that I will promise you that I will spend the next 5 or 6 years on. And I promise you that I will kill a big buck.
Really?
We found an area that has everything. It's about a 5,000 square acre area that has everything that you can possibly imagine for big bucks. I was up there hunting the early season without any bait. You know what I mean? It was a different animal for me this year or last year. But I was able to put a lot of what I've learned about just reading sign and going in and being mobile and hunting deer to my advantage. However, I did not kill last year, but I was very, very close. And I can guarantee you there's going to be a lot more success this year being able to hunt consecutive years in the same area. So
I gotcha. No, that makes total sense. So like I've heard in the past, you know, like I said, I've never hunted the UP. I've have uncles and my father, they've done it all. But like I've heard in the past, like the stories, you know, as it goes is like, if you can hit a good migration, then you can be successful. Is that true? Like, do you have, like when you're going up there, let's say you're going up there in October, you know, let's call it early to mid October, you know, what are you looking for to, and I know this is a broad question because obviously you're looking for scrapes and, you know, sign, concentrated deer sign, you're really looking for that as well. But like, what are some things that you're looking for, you know, knowing you have a limited time, you live in South Jersey, so knowing you have a limited time, like what are you looking for to try to, you know, be most efficient and get in on these deer as soon as you can?
Well, let's put the place that my brother and I found. I'm not going to give, you know, latitude and longitude lines to it, but it has everything that I've trained myself on in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, in Maine, in Connecticut. all the different things in South Jersey, all and Delaware, all the different things that I've learned over the years in those places, it has every single aspect of those in this area. So it's got some elevation, a lot of things that are broken up. There's no, if you take a look at the UP, a lot of it is just a big massive, area, and there's not a lot of edge. Well, there's a lot of edge if you look into it, but you
Right.
got to walk it. You know what I mean? This has got edge. It's got selective clear cuts. It's got clear cuts. It's got old apple trees. It's got oaks, and it's got like I said, it's got the drainages for elevation change. So it's got browse. It's got water. It's got everything you could possibly look for. If I was to go look for a place, that's what I would look for. I was on the, texting with a friend of mine here, John White, with the hunting challenge just a little while ago before you and I got on the phone, and he's sending me some pictures and some overheads of things that he's looking for. He's got a lot of cover. He's got small amount of water, and he's getting pictures at night, like around 12 o'clock. And he's got bean fields along the edge. And I said, dude, you got to look at the water. So for me, if anybody knows anything about me and has been on my Instagram and whatever, the water is the main thing that I look for. So in the UP, that's not going to change. I'm going to always look for water. I'm going to look for rivers. I'm going to look for lakes. I'm going to look for beaver ponds. I'm going to look for that first. Deer got to have water.
Yep.
They're going to find the browse. They're going to find, there's some deer that they've never ate an acorn in the UP. They've never ate an acorn. They've never ate on a farmer's field, but yet they've got to 6 years old and they got a 160-inch rack on their head. But the one thing that they had every day was they had water.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they're browsing on things, and deer are made to browse. They're really not made to eat beans. You know what I mean? As much as it's a key for us in the farm areas, you know what I mean? They don't need beans to live. They don't need beans to get big racks. They're going to get, you know what I mean? They're going to get their age without beans. So, but they absolutely, Aaron, need water.
Yeah. So that's a good out of the box kind of, thought there. That's one thing that a lot of people, I feel like, look over. I look over that as well, because what I can tell you, the first thing that I'm really looking for, and I did this the other day. I was scouting in one of my own home properties here in, locally. And what I want to look for is, I don't know why my mind gravitates toward every time, but I want to find some edge. I want to find some definition. I don't know why. Maybe that's why deer use it all the time, is because they're edge creatures. But I just gravitate towards edge. So once I find that edge, I start scouring that edge. What else is here that makes me want to stay here? Is there a scrape line? Is there a rub line? Is it, trails going in and out of? Well, the specific edge that I found was where thick swamp that you can't really walk in as a human. I mean, deer will get in there. It's where that meets basically an old clear cut, and the clear cut's probably 20 years old now. It's starting to get grown up, but it's still pretty thick. So in that instance, I'm looking for where the most concentrated trails are coming out of that swamp. That's kind of how my mind works. I start with the edge. So, and this is a piece of property that's privately owned, and I've hunted it for my whole life. So it's like I kind of know where all the water is. So I think that might be something, or maybe the little reason why I don't go look for water is because I know where it's at. And I don't know if that's an excuse or not, but maybe it's just something that doesn't get brought up in my head. I'm trying to think of
Aaron, think about it like this. So my friend John White with the hunting challenge, like he said, I'm getting a clock, and he showed me some pictures of this buck coming through, and seems like he really likes this area on the northeast wind. And, we talked about it a little bit, and I was like, dude, I think, where do you think he's bedding? He asked me. And I said, I think he's probably over by that creek over there, or somewhere along there. First of all, there's ditch and there's some elevation change. We don't have much elevation change here in South Jersey.
Yep.
So it's very, very flat. The only place you're going to get elevation change, there's a couple of towns that are a little bit higher, you know what I mean? Maybe 60 feet, maybe.
Right.
But for the most part, our average elevation is -6 feet down here. Actually, we're a floodplain. It's really,
Yep.
if you were to look at the geology of southern New Jersey, it's a floodplain, is what it is. It's trapped between the Delaware River and the Delaware Bay in the Atlantic Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a big, huge sandy floodplain. So when we get any elevation change, it's good. But what I was trying to explain to him is that deer, no matter what day of the year it is, especially when it's hot, he needs to go to water first.
Right.
So either he's bedding by water or he's going to go to water first. So I told him either, and we looked at the picture of the area, and like I told him, I said, either the reason why he's getting to you at 12 o'clock is either he's way away. I said, either that or he's over by this creek that's a little bit south of where he's at, probably a couple of different properties south of him. I said, or someone is feeding him, or there's something that he's eating between you. And there's no beans until we got right to where his camera was at.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to those beans, but there's something in between there that he's going to. He's going to go to the water first. I think he's probably bedding close to that water because they need water no matter what.
Yep.
This time of year, they're not getting the water from the plants, the browse. They're not getting that water. Everything is dry and harsh and brown. You know what I mean? So they're not getting as much water as they need to survive from, in my opinion, from the browse that they're taking. Sometimes in the year they can, like in the spring and stuff, when things are growing and it's pulling the moisture and you're getting a lot of rain and it's pulling the moisture out of the ground, they can probably get almost as much moisture and water out of the green stuff that's growing. Yep. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Aaron, but
yeah,
you know,
it definitely does. And that's something that I would like, I think as I'm planning, you know, how I would scout when I go up to the UP, like, you know, I've already done some e-scouting and everything. And obviously what you can see on the computer is edge. Majority of the time you can see some edge and you can see topographical lines and everything too, but I'm looking for that edge and I'm going to get on the ground and then I'm going to go and look from there. So like, how do you, I know you grew up in the UP, so this might not be a very difficult question for you, but how, when you're going to like big woods like this, I mean, I'm talking 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 acres or more, because that's how much is up there. There's a ton, you know. How do you not get intimidated, and how do you like just break it down to where, you know, it's not overwhelming?
You break it down, just like you just said. You break it down into pieces. So if I'm going to look at a place that's 10,000 acres, 5,000, 2,000, whatever it is, if I'm in Ohio, if I'm wherever I'm at, Pennsylvania, Maine, the UP, I'm going to look at those things and I'm going to start breaking it down into things that make sense to me. And then the one thing that other places don't have that the UP does have, I mean, there might be a place out in Missouri and in maybe southern Indiana and stuff like that have this, but dirt roads that go through those forests are huge. And it's something that is so basic that but we probably have got away from it so much. And, you know, as far as hunters, is you drive those roads, you find a 25-acre piece of property, and there's a bunch of roads that go through it. Luckily and fortunately, in the Upper Peninsula, you got roads going everywhere.
Everywhere.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Roads, two-way roads, everything going everywhere. If I was the most basic hunter, but people don't think about it like this anymore, but they used to. And gun hunters do this. You know, old traditional hunters from the UP, Upers do this. You drive the dirt roads, and you find those spots where the deer are crossing. If you find a deer in September or October that's crossing in a low spot next to a creek, and he's on the north side of it or he's on the south side of it, and he's got 4 sets of tracks going across that road in the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks, it's all right there for you.
Sure.
He crosses right here. You got to wait him out. You know what I mean? Or you got tracks going back and forth to the same buck, same big buck that's crossing right there. It's so simple. this is where he comes and goes. You know what I mean? Like, okay, now I got to figure out, like, without going on his trail and without walking that ditch or whatever, just think about it. Like, you got your phone now, open it up, look at it and say, why is he going up here and why is he going there?
Right.
Why is he going to these two different places? And it's generally very simple. It's exactly like in farmlands down in Ohio. You know what I mean? Or in Illinois. It's the same thing. He's got an area where he beds. He's got an area where he feeds. This is a low ditch that he can come through. He's got all the thermals pulling down here, and he can smell it coming, and he can smell it going. You know what I mean? This is why he goes here. But why? Yep. You know, where does start and where does he begin? It's as simple as that. It really is. But we make it so hard, and yeah. It's that simple, but it's to me, if I can drive dirt roads in an area that I like, the dirt roads will tell you everything, man.
That,
you know what I mean? But
that explains a lot, though, too. I guess I'm going to further that question with, you know, there's not a ton of ag up there. You know, there's not a lot of that. So what would you say would be like a destination food source for deer up there? If you're trying to put those pieces together as far as like, okay, they're bedding here, but where the hell are they going? Like, where's that food source? Now, I know that's broad. That could be like an oak flat or something like that. But like, what is there a certain, you know, type of tree up there or something like that? Or like, what would be the destination food source up there in a big woods scenario?
So, I mean, there's been plenty of people that have talked about this before, but I mean, first of all, it's got to be oaks. If you got oaks, that's where they're going. Yep. You know what I mean? Simple as that. And in the Upper Peninsula, I hunt the northern tier or the northern section of the Upper Peninsula. There's not as many oaks as you would think. There's very few oaks, actually. So when you can find those individual oaks, or you know what I mean, you can walk through there and kind of find those oaks that are dropping that year, and they go on a 2-year cycle generally. You find those individual oaks. It's the same way I would do here. I do the same thing in South Jersey. You know, I'm looking for the white oaks first, the red oaks second, you know, and the red oaks are going to be later on in the fall. The white oaks, our white oaks are dropping now. It's, you know, right. August, what is it, the 15th or 16th, something like that right now of August. When I drive around right now in South Jersey, I go through the bean fields that I've been going through all summer. And this week will be the week that I will see bucks and does walking across the green beans to go back to that one oak that's in the back corner to eat. And I will see 2/3 less deer in green beans, green soybeans right now, because there's an oak tree that's dropping in the back by the creek behind the field. Yep. You know what I mean? Most people do not pick up on that, but that is really what's going on. The white oaks are that important to deer that they're in a farming community. They're going to leave the beans to go to white oaks. They're that important. So white oaks are that important. If you can find white oaks in the UP, you are on something. Second of all, in Michigan, all of Michigan, and there's a lot there, is apples. I'm going to look for apples. Yep. Right. There's a lot of places that have apple trees. Michigan is one of those places. Like when we were, you may not have learned this when you were growing up, but we always heard the history of Johnny Appleseed. You know what I mean? Going around and planting or whatever, however it happened in Michigan, we have apple trees everywhere for the last 150 years. If you can find those apple trees, dude, go to those apple trees. If they're on public land in any place where you hunt, go there, trim them in the spring or the fall, you know what I mean, after season, trim them things. Even if it's illegal, don't do it. But go in there and grab a couple of spikes from Home Depot and drop spikes in the root ball of your apple trees. Those apple trees, especially if you don't think anybody else knows about them things, them isolated apple trees back in there, baby them things, treat them things right, because they're going to treat you. You got about a 2-week window to go in there and use them. You know what I mean? The deer will pound them. Yeah. And you know that, Aaron, as well, probably, even in southern Michigan. Yeah, definitely. We've got a lot of apple trees around down here. What would you be driving spikes in the root ball of it? What does that do? Well, you can grab a box of like mineral spikes. They're basically minerals for trees to help trees.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
They're like a green spike that is going to dissipate as soon as the moisture starts hitting it, but it's going to disperse the minerals for the roots of the tree, and just to help your tree out. You know what I mean? Like help those trees out a little bit.
Yep. I didn't know if you meant like a steel spike or something. I'm like, what secrets he got here?
no, just feed your trees, man. Treat them right. Treat them like they're your.
Yep.
If you know what I mean. If you got a good tree and it's dropping good apples that deer like, you know what I mean. Go out there and treat that tree like it's a tree in your backyard or something. You know, like one of your favorite trees. And then thirdly, I'm going to look for clear cuts. The clear cuts are very important, and other people have said this. I'm not saying nothing that's not out there, but clear cuts are the cornfields of big woods.
Yep.
When you know what I mean. So
definitely
go out there, use them. The earlier, the better. The earlier in their cycle, the better. It seems to me like in the mid '90s, when the deer population in the UP started dropping, there was a lot more selective cut going on. There was a lot less just straight up clear cuts, 40 acres here, 40 acres there. What I see in the summer, there is a lot of regular, good old fashioned clear cuts that are ugly when they're done, but they are deer magnets. So find your clear cuts. You know what I mean? It looks like they're starting to actually cut every tree down in 40 acres again now. They're not selectively cutting them. Mm-hmm. So that's actually a good practice for all wildlife. It's not just, for the timber industry. It's good for everyone, everything that's out there.
Yep. When you're going up there to scout, let's say you're scouting a different area that you've never been to, this kind of goes back to the intimidation factor a little bit, but are you like kind of, are you getting deep? Are you getting aggressive? Or are you kind of like just bebopping around? You probably have some areas scouted out from e-scouting before you got there. So you probably got some pins on your phone somewhere. You're probably checking those out. But like, how far off the beaten path are you getting? Because I know the little bit of time that I spent in the wilderness up in the Upper Peninsula with my dad, baiting bears and everything back when I was little, it can be scary, and you can get turned around in no time, and you might not know where the hell you're at. So like, are you getting deep, or are you, kind of just bebopping around and just kind of, every so often just getting a little deeper and deeper?
Well, first of all, you should, like, before you go up there, spend a little time, like you said, e-scouting, dropping some pins, and really don't just drop the pins because this is what Dan Info told you to do, or to drop here and to drop there, and Aaron Belize told you to do, you know what I mean? And you heard on his podcast, really learn what that piece of property is that you're going after. You know what I mean? Like, really learn it. So when you get there, it's not that big of a deal to you. Like, whoa, okay, yeah, there's a few more spruce trees here than I thought, or there's a few more maples here than I thought. Than the picture that was for the aerial that I was looking at. But get an idea of what's going on. Like, get an idea of, okay, if I'm going to walk up this river and I'm going to walk the ridge that's above this creek or this river, you know what I mean? Like, the first 5 bands, I should know the first 5 bands if I leave the road. You know what I mean? Like, so you can kind of, when that river's off to your right or to your left or whatever it is, you can kind of have some orientation on where in the hell you're at. When you're up there, because you need to know where you're at, because in all actuality, if you're having, whatever mapping system that you're using, you should be doing screenshots or offline stuff, whatever you're doing with whatever mapping system that you use, because when you get up to the UP, you're not going to have service in many places. You're going to have service in if you're close to metropolitan areas or city areas or whatever. But you're going to get to places where you don't have service. Mm-hmm. So, and you really, we should all be doing this anyway.
Right.
You should be able to read a map and be able to read a compass.
Right.
On where you're going.
Compass is key.
If nothing more than, hey, I'm on a road, I'm going into this section of woods, my truck is parked here, and I'm south of where I want to go, and this road kind of runs northwest. Or the road kind of runs east-west, and I'm going to the north side of it. Let me grab my compass. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm going north. Let me grab my compass. I'm heading up north. If I head south for the 15-mile length of this road from where I'm at, or 10-mile length of this road, I should be able to, if I go south, I'm going to hit this road at some point. You know what I mean? If it's nothing more than that, that'll get you home at night. You know what I mean? So
yep.
Always carry a compass in the UP. But that's just good woodsmanship anyway. You know what I mean? It really is. In an area where you can't get service on your phone.
Yep.
So
yeah, that's great tips, you know. And that's something that, like I said, I get fired up thinking about this trip. It was been on a whim kind of this summer. I'm like, get a wild hair on my ass where I'm like, you know what? I want to start going up there and doing this. Why not utilize the cabin that we have that has so much history behind it? And, you know, my dad and uncles and everything, you know, spent their time up there. They're a little older and don't do much with it. So why don't us boys go up and do it? And I think it'd be fun. So that's why I wanted to get a hold of you, man. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this and talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate you asking me to be on there, and I really do.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to know what you're doing and to keep up with what you're doing in the hunting world and in the woods this fall and everything, where could you direct them? Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm Todd Freeman on Facebook, and then the UP Bowhunter on Instagram.
Awesome. Awesome, Todd. Thank you very much, man, again, for coming on and doing this. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, Aaron.
All right, there you have it. Todd Freeman, thank you very much, man, for coming on and doing this. Greatly appreciated. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. It was really cool, a lot of information. I do want to remind you guys, please go to 5-star, go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and leave a written review. That really helps in the rankings, gets the Fall Podcast out there a little bit more, because that'd be greatly appreciated. But with that being said, thank you guys very much. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week. We have a holiday weekend coming up, so have fun this weekend, be safe, and we'll be right here next week on the Fall Podcast.